to really be competitive and how to ensure growth in Europe, Central, Eastern, Southern Europe, and Central Asia, and how this can be achieved by using new technologies as well.
I don't think the question is what happened to CEE. I guess the question is a lot larger than that. What happened to the world? Because this is not unique to CEE, what's happening right now. And I think what is at stake here is basically the rules of how society is going to be moving forward. There's a big looming question is, has capitalism failed? I'm not going to venture to say yes or not. I'll just say that the rules of the game have changed dramatically. I don't think that anymore the agenda can be growth for the sake of growth. It is what happened, I think. It's growing at any cost is not anymore an option for the world. So I do believe that the European 2020 agenda already have the pieces on how a new economic model will be shaped up that should add, on top of growth, two very important aspects. One is sustainable, and the other one is inclusive. And it's that really where the biggest innovation will need to happen. How to develop new growth models that are truly sustainable, not just on environment, but as a whole, but also are very inclusive, so not just few people do it. You said you're going to stop me. You can stop me whenever you want because I'm already almost giving a speech. But with that, and I stop there and we can expand more, I'm actually a very optimistic person on how Europe and the world is going to come out of this. Yeah, there will need to be reform, and I think at the policy level, there will need to be big innovation as compared with technology itself. But I'm very optimistic because this is not the first time the world has been in this situation. We know there have been waves of crisis throughout the years. We are in a big one. But every single time, I think human ingenuity, human capability to think through those scenarios of how to get out of it has proven over and over again that it is doable. And at the core of that, technology has always been this mechanism. I'm not saying just technology for technology's sake, but technology to increase the capability of innovation, creation, and so on. I leave it at that, so I let the colleague from the web to talk, and we can expand more on the technology trends.
How you measure that, and what are the trends from your perspective?
The crisis has asked some really important questions about the system that the global economy is based on. And in no part of the world have those questions been more telling than in the European Union. I think we've seen the completely unsustainable growth model that many European economies have been built on. And that's why I see the crisis as an opportunity, because this is the moment to actually start to change those models. We say, in English, necessity is the mother of invention. And I think it's clear that what needs to happen now is that the crisis drives a new approach to innovation, new approaches to smart investment, getting the European economy back on the path to sustainable growth. I think that, your initial question was also what happened to Europe. In fact, I think there are pockets of huge success in Europe. If you look, for example, at the Nordic economies, they have succeeded in combining social cohesion with very competitive and innovative economies, amongst the most innovative in the world. The problem that Europe has is the gap and the divide and the asymmetric nature of the relationship between member states, which means that what's happening in Greece becomes more important than what's happening in the Nordic countries. And the European story becomes the Greek story, whereas in fact Europe has an incredibly positive story to tell in many other areas. So I think that I hope that this will lead to a cleanup, and that the whole of Europe will start to look more like the Nordic countries.
All the politicians in the EU say is that this crisis is not only about economy. It's about politics. It's about leadership. It's about democracy, which does not work in Europe at the community level. So, gentlemen, can new technologies help in building new democracy, e-democracy, new society, a society which will participate more in the decision-making process, in the sharing of what should be done? For example, during the crisis, can we achieve one day such a situation?
Let's define where the real challenge is. And then we collectively perhaps can talk about how to get there. And I'll say the challenge for the world moving forward, it is really defined in the terms of finding and creating new jobs. That's it. You have a job, you will be okay. You have a quality job and you will do great. Remember that what happened actually by Mohamed Bouazizi, the Algerian that basically was taken away from himself, basically the only source of income, basically taking the job from him, right? This vegetable cart basically unleashed an unprecedented change that nobody even thought about that. So it's not only that technology is going to help democracy, it's that democracy will not exist anymore in the form it is, and will be expanded. Not because we said we have a special ways of doing it, it's because technology will force that issue. And that issue is being forced in ways that we would not like to see repeated, like what happened in the Middle East. But there's no doubt in my mind that politicians today have two very important things to be very good at. Number one, getting to be an expert in innovation about job creation. Number two, you better listen very well, because the voice of the small guy is here and is here to stay. It doesn't matter if it is Europe or the Middle East or Latin America. That game of driving politics basically in a very untransparent way is gone, and is gone forever. So I don't even ask the question, can technology help democracy? It is a fact that even the way countries think of democracy have been reshaped, especially by the social movement enabled by these amazing technologies that allows especially the small person to have a voice, to participate, to demand the right answers from their people, to make them accountable in all parts of government, from how they use the public funds, all the way to how they respond to very local issues, water access, access to education in the right places. So absolutely, I think we are in front of a tsunami with respect to how technology and social technology is going to shape up democracy in major ways, I think for good. Now, if that is unmanaged, I think we can get into serious trouble, but there is no doubt in my mind that technology has changed that landscape forever, make it stronger.
There's a few key elements here. I think one is that the sovereign debt crisis in the European Union has led to the marginalization of the European Commission and the usual tools that the whole community method, the whole way in which decisions used to be made in the European Union has changed completely, because it's come down to what was originally Angela Merkel and Nicolas Sarkozy deciding how things were going to be, and the rest of the member states having to come in behind that. What will happen now following the election of Monsieur Hollande, I don't know. But that's had a major impact on the way that the European Union works, and that's one of the reasons that we're seeing so much of the backlash that we're seeing now. So I think there's a big political issue to be solved there about how the European Union should be making its decisions going forward. And I think that the other big political issue that we have now is a backlash against austerity. We are seeing the orthodoxy that had come from Berlin, that it's all about cuts, it's all about very sort of painful social and economic restructuring. We're seeing the backlash against that now in the rise of populism, the rise of nationalism, potentially the rise of protectionism. So I think the connection there into the technology question is, how can you, in a time of austerity, make the cuts that need to be made, but make the smart cuts? Don't cut investment in education. Don't cut investment in research and development. Don't cut investment in the building blocks of a competitive economy. So I think there's a very interesting interconnection here, I think, between your question on politics and your question on technology. What it means for Europe's leaders is they need to, I think, work out a way of deciding whether they're going to integrate and try and hold the European Union together as it currently stands, or whether they now accept that we're looking at some two-speed Europe, some new way of making decisions in Europe, perhaps with a harder core and a softer outer perimeter, because at the moment it looks rather dysfunctional.